So in this final short lesson, we're going to talk about two more tools that you can use in your poly modeling workflow, and I think they're going to add a lot to your object creation. So let's work on building out a chair for our table setting that we had worked on in the previous demos. I'm going to start with a box because, again, I really like to do a lot of box modeling. And for this guy, I'm going to need a few divisions just to be able to pull out legs to create a nice chair type of a shape. So I'm going to go to my modeling toolkit and use that multi-cut tool again. And this time I'm going to go to the top view and I'm going to hit 4 on my keyboard to sort of align this shape with the grid. That way I can be sure that I'm making my cuts in a symmetrical way. I got kind of lucky with this one. It's mostly lined to the grid to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my cuts here, 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 and here. And then I'll go back to my perspective view and you can see that I've cut a few additional faces in that I can pull out for legs. This is nothing new. These are things that we've done in the previous lessons. So I'm going to pull these out with extrude. Control E, if you remember, is extrude, and we're going to pull those straight down. And I've got something that now kind of looks like a nice little end table or a coffee table. But because I want this to be a chair, I'm going to go ahead and use Shift to select the top faces along the back side, and I'm going to extrude those out as well. So let's pull the back of this chair up, and now you can see we have a shape that sort of resembles a dining room chair already, albeit a somewhat boring one. So how can we make this a little more visually interesting? Well, I know many chairs have sort of like an ornate cutout or pass-through in the center of the back, so why don't we do something like that now? I'll go ahead and use my multi-cut tool, and again I'm tabbing out to my front view, so if I hit spacebar you can select between your different orthographic and isometric views. And I'm just going to use this to check and make sure, and I'm going to go ahead and make a cut, let's say here, and right about here. Check that, okay. And so now I have something that I could use to create a nice gap through the back of my chair. So let's go ahead and delete these two faces. What you'll find though is that this leaves us with a problem. The problem being that the inside of this object has no normals to display, and we can see the inside of it. So it's got a hole cut through the center, and now we can see inside the shape. We need to do what's called a bridge operation to close these holes back down. So let's go to edge mode, and if I select two adjacent edges, so I'm going to go ahead and select the front edge and then shift select the back edge. In my modeling toolkit, the same place my multi-cut tool is located is this bridge tool. So let's go ahead and hit bridge, and you can see that it closed that shape down. This tool won't work if you have an uneven number of verts along either one of the edges you're trying to bridge. So if I had had a cut down the front of this face and not down the back of this one, this tool would not know how to bridge those two edges together. Similarly, if you've done any double extrusions, the tool won't work. But so long as you have some nice clean geometry with a matching number of verts, you can actually select multiple at once and it should still work just fine. So I'm selecting, as you can see, all the edges along the front and all the inside edges along the back, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit bridge, and I have now bridged those down. So that bridge tool lets us close up holes really nicely, and that's one tool that you can add to your repertoire. The next tool that I wanted to talk about is really powerful, and I like to use it in a lot of cases where I might want something that is a little more geometric but has nice rounded corners in certain places. So if I smooth this object now, if I hit 3 on my keyboard for smooth preview, you can see that it rounds the chair out all over. It sort of just smooths between all of the existing polygons and creates a nice round hole in the center, and it rounds off the corners at the top. It rounds between the legs. It's just very smooth and rounded all over. But let's say that I really wanted to round off the corners on the top of my chair here, but I didn't want to lose the sort of nice flat geometric legs and base that I have. That's where my bevel tool comes in. So let's go ahead and select the corners. I'm going to select the edge on the top right and the edge on the top left. And I'm going to go ahead and bevel that. So I'll hit the bevel button. And you can see that what the bevel tool does is it kind of lops off the corners that we had selected along that edge. We have a few options here with this tool, so I'm going to get down into each one of them. I'll zoom in here so you can see. With fraction, if I take this fraction value and slide it up, okay, all the way at 1, it's going to run that slice all the way up to the existing edge, and because I have 2 selected, it's going to go by the one that is closest. So you can see that it won't overlap. The fraction at 1 takes the cut all the way to the adjacent edge and stops. Okay. You can choose how much or how little of that face you want to cut off. So I'll just push mine to about here. And that looks pretty good. And now we have segments. If I take the number of segments on this up, you can see that instead of being a flat cut, it sort of adds divisions to allow me to get a nice round profile on those 2 corners. That's very, very nice. And now the last tool that we have in this options box here is depth. And this one's really nice because if we take the depth from 1 down, you can see we can kind of start pushing it in, and all the way at -1, it's going to do the opposite. It's going to just sort of miter in those corners. It's going to cut them into the shape. So we have a lot of fine control here using this tool, and it's going to allow us to get a lot of really nice results. So instead of having to smooth this shape, I can now take a look at it. I've got nice rounded corners along the top at the back, and then nice flat edges along the base here. So that kind of concludes our basic modeling tools lessons. With all the tools that we've discussed in the past 3 videos, you can model just about anything. So get creative, and I hope to see you in the next video.